I'm sitting in front of a river here, and this river has a name, as all rivers do. It's called the Lungargine del Piovego. Now, I actually might be slightly incorrect. I don't know if it's necessarily called the Lungargine or the Piovego. I've heard both here. But the name of a river is called a hydronym. This is a bit of a disclaimer. In the following video, I insistently and consistently pronounce Douro as Duero, kind of like a weird Portuguese Spanish combination pronunciation. Why? I don't know, because I even looked up the pronunciation of the Portuguese beforehand, but it was a mistake that I kept making, and I thought I should just point it out before you go into this and get any wrong impressions. I just hope maybe the nice background compensates a little bit for the mistake. And I'm not here to actually talk about this particular river. I'm here to talk about a river in Portugal, the Duero, because the Duero is an excellent example of an overlooked contribution to the Romance languages, and especially the Iberian Romance languages. Stick around, because that's what this whole video is about. The Duero is one of Portugal's main rivers. But what's quite interesting is that it demonstrates that Iberian Romance goes far beyond the typical sources that we usually state. Most of the time, when we learn about Iberian Romance and we're talking about what constitutes Iberian Romance, most accounts will probably start with the invasion of the Romans during the Second Punic War. There'll probably be perhaps mention of the Visigoth invasions, and then almost certainly the Arabic invasions in 711. But it often kind of stops there. Maybe if your textbook is particularly in detail, it will mention the Germanic influence from the Visigoths, and it will also mention the pre-Roman cultic populations in the Iberian Peninsula. And all this is good, all of this is true. I'm not here to kind of write a revisionist history of Iberian Romance. I would not be qualified for that, and there's actually no real reason to. But something that I found particularly interesting recently reading Ramón Menéndez Pidal's fantastic Historia de la Lengua Española is just how extensive pre-Celtic settlement in the Iberian Peninsula was. Now, unfortunately, due to lack of written records, we can't really reconstruct much of the language of these pre-Celtic populations, but a lot of their words remain in toponyms, and in fact, by and large, toponyms seem to be pretty sticky if you ignore the linguistically imprecise language. They're quite conservative. Throwaway languages that have long disappeared continue to live up into our own days. An excellent example of this is the word dune. Dune obviously has become famous because of Frank Herbert's science fiction series, but dune is actually a Celtic word used in the British Isles to refer to hill. So when we talk about a sand dune, it's literally a sand hill. Keeping our focus on the Iberian Peninsula, Menéndez Pidal assures us that there was extensive Illyrian settlement in the Iberian Peninsula, and for context, the Illyrians correspond more or less to the Adriatic coast of what we would today call the Balkans. Now, people from this area settled a reasonable portion of the Iberian Peninsula even before the wave of invasion from the Celts, who would later go on to form part of the Ibero-Celt civilizations in the Iberian Peninsula. And one of the words that the Illyrians used to refer to river was Durius. That's the Latin transliteration. But I just think that it's very interesting that in this very, very famous Portuguese river, we actually have remnants of a non-Roman, non-Arabic, non-Germanic, possibly not even a Proto-Indo-European language. Now, maybe you can correct me there. I'm not sure if the Illyrians spoke Proto-Indo-European or not. Correct me down in the comments below. But whether or not they did, it's an extremely interesting example just of the degree of linguistic diversity that Iberian Romance possesses, but also it's an interesting example of just how mobile pre-modern societies were. Societies even before the development of the Roman Empire tended to be much more mobile than we often give them credit for. I thought that's an interesting reflection to leave on. I'm going to leave you there, and for now say adeus, até a próxima.